Oh, Shabbat Shalom. Kol HaKavod. Congratulations, Liv. You did such a wonderful job today. Your words of Torah were thoughtful and timely, and you led us in prayer with such poise and sincerity. This morning, Liv, you guided us through one of the most important sections of our Torah, known as the Holiness Code. Here, God lists the mitzvot, or commandments, which, as you said, form the foundation of a holy life. Commandments like honor your father and mother, keep the Shabbat, and love your neighbor as yourself, among many others. It is a portion that creates the scaffolding for our Jewish future, and one that compels us to consider what it truly means to live in holiness. My first teacher of holiness and my first Jewish role model was my Bubbe, my grandmother on my mother's side. Though small in stature, she was mighty in presence, a force of goodness, kindness, laughter, and love. Fiercely protective of those in her midst, Bubbe was unafraid to stand up to anyone, and she was wholly unfazed by those who would try and cross her. Tiny as she was, she commanded tremendous respect. And yet, for all her guts and grit, Bubbe was also the sweetest, most lovable human being with a wise, knowing face and eyes that sparkled when they looked at you. Born in 1916 to immigrant parents, my Bubbe grew up very poor on the streets of Chicago. It was a hard life with little opportunity for education of any kind. And by the time she was a teenager, Bubbe was working to support herself and her family. Among her many stints, she spent some time working at the family's newspaper stand, where urban legend has it that mobster Al Capone guarded her block. She worked as a postal truck driver, a job that very few women held at that time. And she also spent many years scooping ice cream in an old-fashioned ice cream shop. But by the time I came around, Bubbe was what one might call a career volunteer. She volunteered every single day at the J, as she called it, or the JCC, and later at the nearby NICU and Jewish Family Services. I always felt like the luckiest little girl because I went to preschool at the J, where Bubbe worked. I loved seeing Bubbe in her element, and I always felt so proud. My Bubbe gives everyone lunch, I would tell my teachers. And that was true. Bubbe oversaw the hot lunch program, which served many impoverished and under-resourced seniors who lived in the neighborhood. The room was full of survivors, immigrants, many of whom had just arrived from the former USSR, and seniors who were economically, psychologically, or physically marginalized. The JCC cafeteria was a bustling, chaotic whirlwind during lunchtime, but Bubbe was definitively in charge. She was the mayor and the maestro and the magician in that room, schmoozing and orchestrating and making all kinds of miracles happen for her guests. She welcomed her guests, sat them down, and ensured everyone, no matter their circumstances, would receive a hot and hopefully delicious lunch. She worked that room with efficiency, professionalism, and love. Somehow Bubbe remembered every detail about every guest. She knew exactly what her patrons loved and didn't love. She knew their allergies and aversions. She knew this one preferred sitting by the window, and this one liked sitting by the bathroom. She knew this one liked fish, this one liked brisket, and she knew that this one always requested a to-go container to supplement what was likely an empty fridge at home. This mental accounting not only helped Bubbe run a tight ship at the J, but also made her guests feel seen and valued and remembered. For example, if someone didn't show up one day, Bubbe got right on the phone and called after them. If another person was sick, Bubbe would help rally the community to send food and other supplies. The lunch program with Bubbe at the helm became its own little congregation of sorts, a place of gathering, support, and community for so many people in need. Bubbe ensured this program ran each and every day because she understood it was not a luxury, but a necessity. The regulars came not only to eat, and often this was their only substantive meal in a day, but they came to meet one another and to push away their loneliness. I often wonder what compelled Bubbe to show up each day at the J, and what drove her to live the way she lived as far as volunteering was concerned. Despite the fact that she was a deeply committed Jew, she never framed it as an obligation or a responsibility or a mitzvah. It was just what she did every day. Service to the Jewish community was ingrained in her marrow and embedded in her bones. And yet, in Bubbe's volunteerism, we see examples of the very commandments listed in our Torah today. Commandments like honoring the generations who came before us, feeding the hungry, caring for the poor, and ensuring that all in society, most especially those living on the margins, are provided with what they need. She devoted her life to performing mitzvot, to living out the commandments, even if she didn't necessarily see it that way. So how did she see it? Rabbi Lawrence Kushner teaches that the word mitzvah, which is usually translated as commandment, can also be defined as a response to God, that is. He writes, "Consider what you do in response to God's presence in your life. You may not hear a thundering hallelujah chorus, but maybe something more subtle. You become aware that you're in God's presence. What then? Silence, song, blessing, candles, charity, study, reaching out to another person? Just these are the beginning of the response." I believe Bubbe lived this life of dedicated service because she was responding to God's presence in her life. She saw God in the faces of those who struggled to find their place in America. And she saw God in those who were hungry and lonely and lost. She saw God in those who had suffered unimaginable torment in the Shoah, the Holocaust. And she saw God in those who simply yearned for company and connection. Yes, Bubbe saw God sitting humbly at the lunch table, and she could not help but respond. As we consider what it means to live a holy life, and what God implies with the words, "You shall be holy," I hope we can channel Bubbe in some way. For at the core of Judaism and at the core of holiness is this obligation to respond to God, to respond to one another, to respond to our people here in Israel and around the world, to respond to suffering, to respond to injustice, to respond to hate, and also to respond to love and wonder and joy. May we all learn to be like Bubbe, mine, and I bet yours too. And may we live simply to respond, embracing every opportunity to serve others, seizing every chance to affirm the humanity of those around us, and taking every occasion to make this life a little better than it was before. This is what it means to live a holy life, and this is what it means to build a holier, more just, and more loving world. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may we respond to God's presence all around us. And may our Bubbes and all the generations who came before us be our guides in holiness today, tomorrow, and always.